Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another installment of the Other Side of the Sun podcast. I am the solarkidd, and today I have a guest all the way from Cape, the beautiful Cape in South Africa. His name is Daniel Mpilo Richards.
Yes, sir.
Uh, DMR Productions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Welcome, my brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. It's an honor.
Cape Town,
it's a pleasure.
You're not in Cape Town exactly. You're just outside, isn't it?
Just outside of Cape Town in Clan William, which is 2.5 hours outside of Cape Town.
Like people are going to come visit you now. Whoever's watching the podcast.
That's too specific. I was too specific.
No, I'm joking. Just don't blame me if you get the call and people say, "Hey, is that Daniel?
Hey, man.
You married? Are you single?" Yeah, man.
Oh gosh. Yeah, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's weird. It was like just moving into autumn here, and now all of a sudden we got a freak 27-degree here, bro. It's boiling here.
Oh.
Yeah, literally, this country is like, it'll be hot and then cold, and then, I mean, you've been here, so you know how weird it can be in London.
Absolutely.
We're having like a bit of an Indian summer here. But Daniel is a filmmaker, actor, musician, philanthropist. I thought I'd just throw that one. But yeah.
Yeah, man. I always find that word interesting, philanthropy, because it implies that I've got cash to throw around. I really don't.
Like, yeah, I'm just gonna join the UN, and I'm gonna help these underprivileged people around the world.
Yeah, exactly. Change the course of South Africa. No ways. Nah. Getting there.
I'd say social activist then.
Yeah, I would say social activist. That's a good word. A good title.
But primarily actor, filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean, acting's taken a backseat over the last 2 years, and I find myself more in the producing, directing, and editing space. And I'm thankful that I kind of made that transition 2 years ago, because COVID has shown me that being an actor in South Africa is very temperamental and unstable. So
generally it is, in wherever you are.
Yeah, I suppose. But I mean, I feel like in the UK, there's more of a structure to lean on. It's easier to be exploited as an actor in South Africa than it is in the UK.
In what sense?
And well, purely on the sense that the entertainment industry in the UK is unionized. So there's that minimum wage type of thing. Whereas here, if you kind of argue about a figure that someone should be paying you, they could just drop you and go and look for someone that's willing to work at that figure.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same in my industry.
Which is tricky.
It's the same in my industry. Like, obviously, as a sound engineer, I mean, I don't really do as much live gigs as before, but like generally speaking, if I was doing that back home, I mean, the scope and, like you say, the support is just not there. I mean, my friend has his own business. He's been doing really well for a long time, but COVID has hit him quite hard, obviously, with the fact that there's no, whereas per year people are getting furloughed. There's furlough scheme in place to keep people's, pay ticking over. There's been government incentives that they've been providing for people like self-employed, like myself, you know what I mean? So like, I completely get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Tough, man.
Yeah, tough. But we push through.
Well, that's what makes South African, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The thick skin, bro.
Dealing with all of the nonsense that you have to deal with.
Thick skin.
Just to get by, man. Just to get by.
So tell us a bit about young Daniel. What was your upbringing like, man?
Whoa. Young Daniel was a short, fat kid who grew up in Johannesburg. And
Oh, so you grew up in Joburg?
yeah, I was born in Switzerland, and we settled in Johannesburg when I was about, I think, 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
My parents were studying all over the world, and by the time we had got to Joburg, I had lived in Cape Town, America, and Switzerland.
Wow.
So it Joburg was a strange place for me. It felt like a concrete jungle, and I I think I never knew what I wanted to do with my energy until midway high school, when I discovered the acting world, and I got the opportunity to be in a show called Lord of the Flies at the Market Theatre.
Nice. I love that book. Wow, I love the book
Yeah,
as well.
it's a dark one, but
Mm.
especially for a young teen. But there are a lot of lessons in there, and I think I just had the opportunity to throw myself into this other world, find my creativity. And I remember standing on stage one night and thinking to myself, I could probably do this for the rest of my life,
Nice.
because it was just so freeing and so, yeah, just it was just amazing.
That was one of
Um,
my first major platforms as well.
really?
Yeah, it's weird. While I was studying sound engineering, I was also doing a Saturday poetry and acting class at the lab at the Market Theatre.
Okay.
And yeah, so I got to perform there, and it helped me just, with my poetry and live poetry and stuff as well. Yeah,
Oh,
well,
wow.
special place, man, the Market Theatre. I used to love it.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I always found going to the Market Theatre a joy, because it was an excuse for me not to have to do well at school. So if a teacher asked me, like, "Why didn't you do your homework?" I was like, "I'm busy at the Market Theatre, obviously. I've got more important things to do with my life."
Yeah, man, there was such a good
And
vibe there, good energy there, man. Like, even before our time,
absolutely.
you know what I mean? There was Kippy's was there and all those places, there's a lot
Mm,
of history of things going on there.
mm, mm. Yeah. And then I I moved from Joburg to Cape Town midway through high school. Finished up my high school in Cape Town, and then studied in Cape Town. And I, to be honest, much preferred the vibe in Cape Town than in Joburg.
More laid back or
Yeah, more laid back, mountain, sea, family.
so
All my family's in Cape Town.
I'm assuming you didn't have much of the hood involved in your upbringing then, probably more in the suburb side of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I I I grew up. I mean, look, my experience of Johannesburg was, I remember riding my bike. My father had got me this bike, but he made me put it together myself, because my father was training to be an engineer at the time. And his rule was, you got to be able to build it before you ride it. So,
Sick guy.
so I sit for 2 weeks trying to put this bicycle together. I eventually get it all together, and my first journey out into the streets of Josie, my guy, I'm
That doesn't end well.
going down the hill, and I I now get to the bottom of the hill, and I need to push the bicycle back up the hill, and halfway up, pushing this bicycle up the hill, I get robbed at knife point. And I was just like, wow, wow.
Like, yes, Josie.
Yeah, Josie. Amazing, amazing.
Josie living.
Josie Levin, Josie Levin. No, but that's just my experience. There's plenty of other good experiences at Josie, but there's an energy to that city that doesn't sync with me.
It's quite tense, isn't it? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if you grow up within that tension, like, I know, like, I still feel it when I go back home sometimes. I have to kind of prepare myself before I get home, because now I'm coming with a whole troop of foreigners and my family
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So we have to be mentally in the mind state,
Isn't that just the strangest thing, man? That you have to prepare to enter that kind of space.
Yeah, man.
Strange.
They don't call it GP, Gangsters Paradise, for nothing. But then on the flip level, it's so easy. Like for a lot of tourists, I mean, I've met people over here that have been through Joburg, and then obviously, generally their journey is like airport, Rosebank or Bryanston or Sandton, and then Sun City. So they don't see any of the other like shit around Joburg, you know what I mean? So like, for them it's like, oh, it's amazing and rah, rah, rah. I'm like, okay, no, you're right. It's a beautiful country. Such a small percentage of what actually goes down, you know. It's so easy to be able to go. Even Cape Town. I mean, Cape Town is another one. You can fly over Khayelitsha, and you know what I mean. My grandmother and them live in Elsies River, so like they're right by the airport. You see the planes coming over. Fly into Cape Town International, and it's Lekker, Table Bay, there, Clifton, whatever, and Cape Town is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's easy to see South Africa for what it is.
Totally. Just skip through all of the poverty and just go to the other side of the mountain.
So you obviously you well traveled. I know you've traveled quite extensively. You've been to the States, you've been in Asia, all those places. You were in Asia just as lockdown hit. So like how would you say traveling has affected your perspective? Like every time you come home, you know what I mean? How is it like?
It's wow. That's a layered one, because traveling broke my perception of how I would like to function in society. I think the experience I had, particularly in the UK, because I spent quite a bit of time in the UK, is I started to realize how much fear I carried around as a South African. So when you're in another country, you suddenly realize what you do have and what you don't have in your own country. And so the toss-up is, you know, South Africa is this incredibly diverse, beautiful country, but at the same time, there are a lot of blankets put over the reality of the country. And we found unique ways to hide those pieces of the country, so that when tourists come, they experience the 10% of what this country actually is like. So traveling has shown me that, because, you know, when you're a tourist in another country, you also just see certain sections of that country that people might guide you towards. You know, you're going there to experience things as a tourist, but when you get to live in a country, you get to actually interact with the community and see what the standard of living is like. So traveling has certainly changed my perspective on how I would like to live in whatever country I end up living in.
How is it? How would you say it's affected your perception, like towards South Africa itself? Like, is it positive or negative? Or
it's both. I think you have to choose. Some days it's more positive than negative. Other days it's more negative than positive. I certainly have noticed where South Africa is lacking in terms of accessibility, transport, and safety. Those two things. You know, if you don't have a car in South Africa, and you need to take public transport, good luck to you, because you're going to be spending a lot of time on those things. And if you make it through, I just hope you don't get rustled up by whoever notices that you're not supposed to be a tourist. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it even happens to people who are local, you know. So,
bro, exactly, man. So you almost stick out like a sore thumb when you're.
I stick out when I come home.
Really?
Yeah, bro. Like, it's weird. I thought I still had that swag, that Joburg swag. Yeah, the last time I was there, we hired a car. I went to the petrol station. I'm still like, yeah, shop, my bro. And this guy is like, where are you from? London. I was like, what? Now, bear in mind, when we come over, it's winter over here, so I probably have no complexion at all. I probably look very like London. So they're probably like, this must be a Lonnie from London here trying to compete in South Africa. But yeah, no, it is. I completely get that, man. You completely forget.
But people are certainly very. I have noticed the positive thing is that people in South Africa are quite a warm group of people.
Yeah, definitely.
That communicate with each other in the street and in public transport versus sitting in the tube
in London,
and like everyone's just silent and on their phones, earphones or books or whatever. It's strange.
How do you feel? How do you feel about that culture? Because that's something that hit me early on. Is like what I've noticed is that there's a very, even if you're like a working class kid or whatever, you get on the train and you pick up a newspaper and you start reading, even if you're a kid. There's a big culture of that. So I'd say like information is like people just get fed more information that way, whereas like there's not much of a reading culture back home, I'd say, in that sense, where you just get on public transport and.
That's true. There's not much of a reading culture in public. And yeah, I don't know. I've actually haven't thought about that before. And I wonder whether, certainly like Wi-Fi or cellular devices are cheaper on that side of the world. We are paying crazy rates just to get access to internet.
Oh my God. I've seen that, man. It's ridiculous.
It's insane. So I'm thinking now, people don't get access to that information because it's just not affordable.
Yeah.
Which is sad. It's a bit sad.
Every second person has a phone or two with unlimited internet access. At your fingertips, on call 24/7. You know what I mean? There's no waiting for data and bundles unless you're on that plan. But literally, even if you are on pay-as-you-go, you can still buy a data bundle plan with unlimited data for next to nothing.
Yeah.
You even pick up a cheap smartphone for like 50 quid or something. You know what I mean? And you sorted.
It's crazy.
It's mad. It's weird how they've engineered these things.
Yeah. Absolutely engineered these things, kept us in the dark, man.
The dark continent.
Africa.
That actually brings me on to so I watched on your website you had the Oxford Peace Talk, man. I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that, man. I mean, people be interested. Or how did that happen?
So I was awarded a scholarship by it's called the Shevening Scholarship by the British Council. And through that scholarship, I got to study my master's at any university institution in the UK. And through that process, the Shevening Scholarship is all about networking and gathering information to then feed back to your community. And on my journey through this scholarship, I met a number of people and had done a couple of speeches because I'm linked with my father's foundation. And my father's foundation does work in traumatized communities. So our aim is to facilitate healing in traumatized communities. And I was approached by the organizers of the Oxford Peace Talks to speak about, I think the subject was the digital landscape and how we can almost use the digital landscape to change the world, but you didn't have to you didn't have to stick to that theme so robustly. And so I just spoke about how the work that the foundation has been doing in gangland in Cape Town, and how Cape Town in many ways is a city that has two cities. There's one city on the beach side, the Camps Bay, the picturesque side where everybody visits, and then there's the other side of the mountain where there's gang violence, bro. There's like Like, it's mad.
It is. Fucking
And
London Bay and bloody all these,
yeah,
you know,
bro.
all chilling in their Ferraris and
Yeah. And you literally just have to drive 20 minutes and you are in gangland, where you can't drive through gangland because if someone doesn't know you, your car might get shot at.
yeah.
You know? It's like, it's that real. And so I shared that in my Oxford Peace Talk, because I think often we ignore or aren't even educated about those types of atrocities that are just constantly occurring under our noses. We're too concerned about our own living, our own space, and that rightfully so. But we've
And
just
also
got to
it
be
depends what they it depends what they choose to show on the news as well.
absolutely perspective, especially in the digital climate. You know, the one thing I always come back to is an image of, I think I saw it on Facebook about a year ago. It was Cape Town tourism, and they were advertising Cape Town. And there's this drone shot of Camps Bay and the mountain, and like they just slide across this beautiful landscape. And I'm like, look on the other side of the mountain, guys. Like, come on. Like, as you fly into Cape Town, you just look down as you land at the airport and you see all of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even realize.
Yeah.
So that's what, that's what my Oxford Peace Talk kind of touched on, was that there's this other world, and somebody's got to address those issues. We can't ignore it for too long, because I think there was a fact I mentioned in the Oxford Peace Talk, which was there are triple the number of gang members in Cape Town than there are South African Defence Force officers.
Wow.
And I don't think people realize that if the gangs in Cape Town alone decide to come together, they will outnumber our defense force in South Africa.
Hey, we shouldn't be broadcasting this shit. You know? Or Stachy's people might be watching it on the other side or something.
No, man. These are the facts you don't know about, bro. And yeah, it's that close to. My father always used to say, we're this close to civil war, because if those guys decide that they don't have enough, they're just gonna take a ride 20 minutes to the other side of the mountain, where there are those mansions and people living their best lives with cocktails and what. And let's go. There's the money's there.
Well, it's interesting. It hasn't happened now. Speaking about Stachy, tell us that story, man. I love that story about going into the gang boss in order to negotiate the peace.
Yeah.
I'm sure people would like to hear about that. And also what the reason was for it and all that.
So my father, I mean, he's got so many accolades, and he's 60 now. So he's got 43 years of work experience, which is mind-blowing. But he was called in by community members to negotiate peace amongst the gangs. And this comes from a history of my father headed up two of the committees for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and started was the Director General for the Scorpions. So the Scorpions is like a anti-corruption unit in South Africa.
Elite anti-corruption.
Elite. That was actually disbanded because it was too good. It was too good.
So good.
They were like, no, this is too close to home. So my father gets called in to do peace negotiations with these gang leaders, and he's got 10 gang leaders who want to kill each other. They're all armed, but they've all decided to attend this seminar by my father, and he's in the middle of gangland, and BBC hears about it. BBC comes out to cover it, and over the course of those few weeks, my father kind of shares his books with him about how the economy should be running, how they contribute to that economy, not in the right way, but organized criminals are. We're not talking about guys that are just stealing all the time. These guys are highly organized gangs.
Of course, bro.
With
You have to be very intelligent to to be able to pull that shit off. Like,
absolutely. So my father spoke to that intelligence with these guys, and they agreed to, stop fighting, stop the gang violence for a while. And so it was the longest ceasefire in the history of gang violence on the Cape Flats. And that was a moment where the government was about to send the army into gangland because it was getting that bad. My father steps in, he kind of puts a cap on that. But then, the government just didn't want to step in at all afterwards. And so that gang violence picked up again a few months later. But then I got to visit one of the most notorious gang leaders, because he gets counseled by the foundation. So the foundation offers therapy to community members and to gang leaders. And this gang leader wanted to share his story with us, with my friend and I. So we went in and recorded him and blurred out his face, wrote down his story. And he essentially wanted us to write a book about him, but we ended up writing a play and performing this play for his gang members and the kids in the community, and yeah, set out to kind of change consciousness in that way.
I like that a lot. I think you said something about during the time of the ceasefire, the kids were allowed to go on buses to come and see the play.
Yes, and, yes.
Guys also incited a lot of discussion between the kids as to about the play and what what it was about, which to me is how change is definitely implemented in a very positive way, because kids are affected by those things, and if it's such positive information, they're the future who will be bringing about the change, man. I really love that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think what people don't understand is that there are so many kids in these communities who only have reference of that space. It's their house. They walk across the road, across a field, which bullets might fly across that field. They get to school, they attend school, they go back home. That's their world. And so to break them out of that and to literally put them on a bus, take them to the center of town and show them that there's something else that is existing. It just like traveling does for us. It broadens your perspective, blows your mind, and goes, oh, I don't actually have to live in that bubble over there. So how do I get out?
That's true. And there'll always be the ones who get out, there'll always be the ones who want to change, because nobody chooses. I mean, okay, you choose maybe at some point, but nobody really wants to or likes that life, you know what I mean? Constantly looking over your shoulder and being, trying to make yourself hard in order to survive this reality. Like, I'm sure people would all want to enjoy their lives and not have to worry about those things,
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless that's the only thing you know. So, I was introduced to you by a good friend of mine, Liam, and he told me about this other project you're working on, Project Orange. You want to just give us a bit more on that?
Absolutely, man. Project Orange started in May 2020 in response to lockdown, COVID-19 pandemic. And at the time, my father just became a stakeholder in a commercial export, a commercial citrus export farm. So this farm sends millions of oranges to where you are, to the UK, so that you can enjoy the fruits of our labor.
That's the way it is. You dig in the dirt, we get the diamonds, or the queen gets the diamond.
And then you sell it back to us for more,
Yeah, that way you guys stay dirty and they stay material and pretty.
keep us low, keep us dark in Africa.
Mm.
So Project Orange started with a negotiation between the Reuben Richards Foundation and the farmers of the Olifants River Valley. So the Olifants River Valley is in the Cedarburg, which is just outside of Cape Town, one of the most fertile lands in South Africa for citrus. And the foundation, or my father, Dr. Reuben Richards, said to them, seeing as it's a good harvest this year, would you be willing to donate a tithe of your harvest to the foundation so that we can distribute that to vulnerable communities? Because in South Africa, when lockdown hit, the call was to self-isolate and to stay home. But for the majority of our population, that was impossible. One, because of just purely based on how many of the cities are laid out. A lot of informal settlements, people are living on top of each other. You're breathing the same air as your neighbor. And for the majority of the population, if they weren't working, they weren't living. They weren't be able to feed themselves. So we wanted to address that issue by boosting the immune systems of vulnerable communities so that they could continue to potentially function in the way that they wanted to. And since May, we've been sending out oranges to across South Africa. So far we've delivered just over 5.5 million oranges to vulnerable communities in South Africa. And it's been incredible. It's been absolutely incredible just to see the joy on people's faces when they receive an orange, a free orange, or a bag of oranges, depending on what we're able to give them on that day.
No, that's so cool, man. That is really cool. So is this initiative going to continue, or does it have an expiry date?
For this year, the harvest. So it will end. Project Orange 2020 will end at the end of the harvest season, which is now at the end of September, because we can't give oranges that we don't have. And I think our intention is to make this an annual thing where we link up with other organizations and companies to just give back to the community. We've got, this valley produces millions of oranges, and not all of them are export quality for the snobs in the UK that want it.
Yeah, well, you can't go into Tesco and have a wonky orange or a brute orange, bro. What do you think of us?
Exactly. Standards. We've got standards.
What standards here? It doesn't matter what time of year it is. We expect only the highest quality oranges. Summer, winter, whatever. We want avocados from South America. We want quinoa. We want, plantain. We want everything. Perfect.
Yeah, man.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Everything there on demand, any time of year.
Have you seen that documentary on Netflix called Avocado Wars? Oh, man. Incredible. Like, the reason why we have avocados all year round is because Mexico found a way to mass produce avocados and blow off the American market and just take over the avocado space. So that is why we have avocados all year round. Similar with oranges, but not as hectic.
This is I'm kind of veggie. I call myself flexitarian. So I eat mostly veg, but then every now and again I'll have some fish or some chicken if I feel like it. But the point I'm trying to make is the whole thing with veganism is all these vegan people are so against animal cruelty, and rightly so. But then at the same time, the quinoa that they're eating and the avocados that they're eating, there's a lot of exploitation going around regarding how they it's easy to be vegan in a first world country, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's easy to be vegan, I don't know if you lived in, how easy it is if you lived in Kailicha or Soweto to be vegan or whatever.
Dude, I mean, come on.
I don't know if they have like vegan stores on the side of the road there and stuff like that.
I
So,
mean, I don't want to be discriminatory, but I doubt that you've got a little vegan
I mean,
outlet.
how is it over there? Is it quite a big? Has it become quite a big fad as well as it's taken over the
In
world?
Cape Town, yes. I mean, Cape Town is a melting pot for the world. So
Yeah,
we have got foods from all over the place. And I think Cape Town, because it's in some ways, Cape Town is quite snobby with in that respect, because anything that's European or just otherly is in Cape Town now. It's like, okay, what I remember there was a stage where it was all about kale, it's just like,
hell yes,
there was that fix, and
that
then there's,
international vibe.
yeah.
I still
So
like my kale though,
veganism
by
is
the
very
way.
much okay. I'm
I
not,
do
I'm
like
not discriminating. Yeah, no, Cape Town's all about jumping on those trends, eh?
Well, it is an international city, but then at the same time, there's not much. I spoke to a guy from Cape Town today, a friend of mine, who was actually on one of the previous podcasts, Perspective, and we were talking about the gigging, like the club scene, like the live circuit, and why it's so dead out there, like, and why like there's nothing going on. I mean, even before lockdown, like.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
It's strange. I think it's the culture.
I don't want
There's
to pay for shit.
Yeah, no one wants to spend hard-earned
Or
cash
no one
on.
can afford it, basically. Entertainment is a
Yeah,
luxury.
I mean, I don't even think people. It's not that people can't afford. I mean, sure, the majority of the population might not be able to afford it, but I mean, I want to see how many people have Netflix or have subscriptions to all of these types of things. But I think there's a lack of live entertainment culture in South Africa. We've got so much talent, but there's people just don't want to come out and support that, because it's not in our culture yet.
Well, we must speak, man. I mean, that's something I'm definitely thinking about improving in future and trying to work with people around there in how to actually change that, because it's important. Very important. And I don't think, I mean, I know my parents spoke about going to see bands. Obviously, it wasn't as easy, but definitely it's something that needs to change and needs to happen. Speaking of which, you're a musician as well. Like, are you still doing any music, or was it just a phase? Or
Yeah,
what's your, I mean, what's your music life like?
I've been a closet musician for so many years, and so I play the piano, the guitar, the
What
bass.
play them, man?
And I think my love for music got reignited when I went more into the film world, because buying rights for music for film is expensive.
Yeah.
And so I started like composing my own stuff, and just realized, man, I've been sitting with my guitar for like 10 years now. Maybe it's time I actually release something. I mean, because of all of my live performances with my one-man shows that I toured with extensively, I will always include at least 3 musical items. I just don't have anything out in the digital space in terms of music, which I really want to do. I really want to get some stuff out.
There's always time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But music for me is like a safe space. It's a space I go to relax and to just express myself for myself.
Catharsis.
Absolutely, that's the word, catharsis.
So,
Yeah.
speaking of which, are you spiritual? Do you believe in God? Are you Christian?
I'm a spiritual human. I grew up in a Christian home. My father has his doctorate in Hebrew studies. in the Old Testament. So my bro. And I in Joburg, I was at a Catholic school, man. So I'm very familiar with that landscape, and I think over the last 8 years, I've become spiritual more than religious. I feel like religious constructs have been used to oppress certain sections of society.
Very much so. That's my opinion. And traveling in the East, has that affected your, has it made you more receptive to the Eastern and mystic, philosophies from the East?
Yeah, I think traveling in general has just made me accept different perspectives and removed the inclination to discriminate against other people based on their beliefs.
And fear as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So religion is a strange thing. I can't expect you to believe what I believe, and you can't expect me to believe what you believe, but we can exist in the same space.
Yeah, and we do.
We agree to do that. Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, like the one thing that I don't get, well, that I find interesting about people is that everyone, like a lot of people who are like fundamentalists or like, these extremists, especially in terms of whatever they are, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, whatever, we still go to work with different people from different faiths, different religions, different backgrounds. And a lot of time you'll have friends from either faith or background. So how do you still manage to like draw the line between you and this person, even though you have such a good relationship or you get along so well with them? You know what I mean? How can you draw such a, like you said, those constructs create division, isn't it? Like you said, the constructs of religion or formalized religion as such. Because for me, I can like, that was a nice picture. Like, yeah, I get like, I can appreciate like Jesus as a person, as a man, and the philosophies and teachings of him, and as a prophet, and even as the Son of God. I don't want to get into debates about that, because for me, we're all sons of God. We are all God. But when you start to define and put rules and regulations and interpretations on a book that has been rewritten very, very many times and translated very, very many times, whether the word stays the same and the sentiment stays the same, it becomes a bit of a non-debatable subject for me, because like, I believe every person should use their fucking intellect, and that should help you to decipher like who you are in this world. And like, you can hear good, whether Muhammad says it or Jesus says it or Buddha says it. As a person, you should be able, it should resonate with you. Like, if it says love your brother or love your neighbor, or in whatever, hamdu Allah, you know what I mean? It's you know what I mean? That we are humans. But that's just me. Anyway, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this type of stuff, especially being in South Africa.
No, I think this year I've really connected to the idea that I've just got to operate with love. And it sounds so like wanky and like,
no, it's the real.
It's just, you gotta, that's the basis. I mean, everybody experiences some form of love, so why not just operate from that space? You can't go wrong, regardless of what your beliefs, your religious beliefs are, or your whatever social constructs you live by. If you operate from a place of love, I don't think you are necessarily going to discriminate or like, all of these.
It's hard to come from a place of negativity when your basis is love, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, we find that so much. I mean, even like within the so-called colored community, you'll have Muslims and Christians living side by side, but this grandmother will say, "Hey, los I may see say slums." That's what I used to get told. Like, I wasn't allowed to date I mustn't date Muslim chicks. So I was like, what the fuck? No. My first chick was Muslim. I was like, no, that don't make sense to me. Like, you know, honestly.
And it goes deeper than, you know, the story my father always tells me is how because he's quite a dark man, and my mother is a very light woman, but they were both classified
That's
as
cool.
colored.
Okay.
But my mother's family and the community did not accept my father because of his dark skin. But it's like, wait, so not only were they able to classify all of us as so-called colored, but now within that bracket, there are further levels and
Yeah, of
discriminations happening in
course.
and amongst the community. It's
Yes.
just
That is the fucking brains of these motherfuckers who design
yeah.
this shit, bro. You know what I mean? My dad's from Cape Town, dark as the night. My mom
Uh,
is fair like me, you know what I mean?
mm,
Same situations, you know what I mean? I wouldn't say they didn't
mm,
accept him, but there's always that apprehension, you know what I mean? Because
mm.
even though we both fucking classified as colored, like, come on, man.
That's the mental enslavement, but
Yep.
it's dark and so deep within our DNA to dissect these kind of things and go, wow. I mean, we've been taught to respond to color in this way.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Bro, do you know how long it took me? Like, and I mean, still a big part of me still sees that way. But like when I came to the UK, it was a slow breakdown process of not looking at the person and immediately judging them by the color of their skin
Mm,
or the shape of their face or their eyes and all that type of shit.
mm,
Because, and I realized over time that that is how you were just brought up. I mean, my parents weren't like really, you know, they weren't racist. They didn't teach me that way. They were very open, you know what I mean? We had an open house and shit like that. But still, it's there. It's like in you. Do you know what I mean? And I felt so free once I just started this whole thing dissipated, you know, this whole kind of thing of, oh, he's this, he's white, he's black, he's Chinese, this. And then you start to
mm,
really get to know people, you know?
mm.
You get to know people you can trust, people that are like real friends. And like, I hardly notice these things anymore. And like, obviously being in London, my circle of friends is dramatically diverse.
Mm,
From South America to East Asia to North America to Africa to all over India to anywhere in the world, you know what I mean? And people that
mm-hmm.
I look at as friends and not a fucking, you know, social construct or bloody, you know what I mean, whatever you want to call it, you know, culture.
Yeah.
You know, it's deep. People fight for these things, you know, they fight for their culture, they fight for their caste or their color or whatever, and it's like, dude, it's the
Yeah,
21st century. Like, come on.
man. People go to war for this stuff.
And have been. I mean, look at this whole Black Lives Matter movements now. And
There you go. Yeah.
what did you think about all that?
Sure. Again, a layered question. I think with layered responses, it speaks to a, I guess, an unhappiness and a societal discrimination that, for me, goes back much further than the 20th, 19th, 18th century. We're talking about way back when history. And for me, it's something like the Black Lives Matter conversation is so important. It's a almost a watershed moment in global history. But we it was an interesting moment for me as a South African, because everything that was happening in the States, for example, I could go, that's also happening here. So why are our people not talking about the same thing? What is it about our culture that we just gotten used to or censored? Sensitized the word. Have
Desensitized.
we, yeah, desensitized to the fact that there's such atrocities happening in our society. So it's such an important conversation, and I hope that that conversation begins to bring about the plotting of a new narrative for for people of color, because it when we realize how we've been conditioned to think and respond, and how entrenched that is in our DNA, we've got to begin to address our history books and look at what we've been fed from day one. And when you begin to see those types of levels, it's quite overwhelming.
I suppose for us it's more
'Cause
complex as well in South Africa.
yeah,
A lot of colored
yeah.
people, or I say a lot of so-called colored people don't even regard themselves as black. You know what I mean? So it's very, very, very touchy and complex like subject to navigate. Because I saw now on
Absolutely.
Facebook there's a Colored Lives Matter movement as well.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
You see what I mean? So yeah, it's deep.
Yeah, there was a whole, I think a few weeks ago there was this Twitter debate about do colored people have culture? You know, there was this.
That's been a long ongoing debate.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I couldn't care less whether we have culture or not. Let's just understand our history and where we come from first.
Yeah,
because that's where our identity lies.
So what does your father have to say? Because I mean, he's written a book called Bastards of Humans, 500 years of intimacy between South Africa and Europe.
Yes,
Get that if
yes.
you can. I don't know how we can get it, but it's available.
Yes, we need to create an ebook for it, because I mean it's such a massive it's a 2-volume work about the history of colored people in South Africa, but it speaks about the Khoi San, you know, it speaks about the Khoi and the San, and how the original inhabitants of South Africa were the Khoi and the San, and the Europeans came and rewrote that history and actively exterminated a group of people and tried to write them out of history.
Genocide!
Man, genocide.
Don't get me started, bro. Don't get me started on that shit. Like, because it goes as deep as South America as well, Papua New Guinea, Australia.
There you go.
Do you know what I mean? And then yet every year, please, Jewish people don't. I've got 12% Jewish DNA. Every year we have to hear about the fucking Holocaust. Please, I know it was a sad event, and I know that it was a very deep, traumatic thing. But there was fucking genocide in the Congo. There was genocide in South America. The Spanish wiped the motherfuckers out. South Africa, genocide. Fucking Australia, the Aboriginals, the fucking Papua New Guinea. Joking, man. We don't hear none of that shit.
No, we don't. We don't hear about
we have to hear about the Holocaust, you know, especially here in Britain. We have to commemorate it and whatever stuff, like, you know what I mean? So it's deep. We need to speak about these things, and we need to, like, I mean, that's why books like that are important for people to get their hands on.
So true. So true.
Especially
so true.
For people of this so-called colored calling, we need to be reading and understanding these things.
Yeah, and thankfully, these 2 volumes of work have been accepted into the syllabus for into the education system of South Africa.
Oh wow, that's good.
So it's an alternative history book, and hopefully the teachers will include that alternative history book in their teaching. And that's as far as someone like my father can take it. He can write the book and go, this is the information you need to know. Now you need to teach it. You need to tell the kids about
them. I'd love to get a copy of them at some point. I don't know how.
Absolutely. We'll get you a copy. We'll find a way.
And then hopefully I'd love to read it and then speak to your father, man, because people like that are really interesting and important to, like, kind of, you know, expound this type of information, especially on platforms like YouTube, so people can get talking and discussing. And that's why, I mean, you said he was on the Council for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which I thought was fantastic. That's something that places like America have never done. This is why you have these things. I'm not saying it completely heals the situation, but getting people to come out and actually talk about things is the beginning of healing. You need people to get rid of that frustration and that, like, yeah, this white man and this black, and get it out of your system, and then we can realize that yes, it's just this man.
Absolutely.
Just had a bit of a visitor. My son.
The new generation.
The new Maxwell. Hey, this boy. I'm gonna have my work cut out with these boys, man. They're really starting.
Are they all boys?
No, I've got one girl. And
one girl.
Boys, yeah. Thankfully, she keeps the balance at least.
Yeah, she was.
She provides the kind of balance until she turns. Yeah, we'll see when she gets older. And then I'm gonna have to get them to keep the balance, the boys. But yeah, bro, it's been awesome talking to you, man. It's been a real pleasure having you. Are there do you have any final thoughts or links that people can check out, or anything you'd like to share with us? Or?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's go and check out Project Orange. I hope that it will be an annual thing, and so we hope to continue finding ways to, for one, make food more accessible, just basic food more accessible to people in South Africa, and then, like you said, storytelling. For me, it's the essence of healing starts with being able to tell your story, being able to speak those words and let out that frustration or that sadness or that anger, and so that for me is the kind of work that interests me the most. And I think that's why I'm in the creative space, to facilitate storytelling, whether it's through film, music, theater, whatever it is, a medium of expression.
I call myself a magic facilitator.
There you go. Nice. So yeah, man, I really appreciate platforms like this, because you don't often get to have these kind of conversations, and they're so important.
They are
just so important. So thank you, man.
You send me the links anyway, and I'll put them in the video description, and then we'll hopefully share if you have like a GoFundMe page and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So if there's no other things you'd like to say, yeah?
Nah, man.
Cool. So this has been the Other Side of the Sun podcast with my man Daniel. And people, if you have any comments, questions, that's something I see has been lacking in the video. So if you have any comments, questions for me or for Daniel, put them in the comments. I'll try to get the voices heard. Or if you don't agree with some stuff I'm saying, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there that don't, say it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, you know the deal. And thank you for watching. It's been the Other Side of the Sun. Peace.